Captain America, an origin story. Before you were born, in fact, long before even the oldest person you know had been born, a peaceful little island sat right off the mainland of a place that was called different things by all the different nations of people who lived there. As time went on, more and more people came to this little island. They wanted to leave behind the lives they led in a place they called the Old World and build new ones in a place where they believed anything was possible. They came from all over the world. For most, this island was the first stop on the path to a new life in a young nation. This island was known as Manhattan in the city of New York. The country will be known as the United States of America, or America for short, before America was even 200 years old. It was called upon to fight alongside other countries in a terrible war that was destroying the world. The news of war moved people. It seemed like everyone in the country wanted to join the army to help, including a young man named Steve Rogers. Steve had been upset about the war for some time. Now that America was involved, he could do something about it. Soon, Steve was in a long line of men waiting to be examined. If the men passed, they would be deployed to the war. Steve waited his turn. Every man so far had passed the examination. Steve was confident he would too. Steve was examined and tested until his head swung. At first he had gone through tests with all the others, but after the first 2 days he was tested by himself. Finally, the doctor pulled Steve aside and told him that he was in no shape to join the army. But then he told him there was another way to get into the army. He handed Steve a file marked Classified Project Rebirth. The doctor told Steve that if the experiment worked, he would be able to join the army. Steve said he would try anything to become a soldier. The doctor called in a general named Chester Phillips. General Phillips was in charge of Project Rebirth. The general led Steve down a hidden hallway to a secret exit. Soon the two men were crossing the bridge into nearby Brooklyn. They arrived at an antique shop in a run-down, dangerous-looking area. An old woman led them in and led them downstairs. But the store was not an antique shop at all. It was a cover for an underground lab. And the owner was not an old woman, but a secret agent. General Phillips introduced Steve to the project's lead scientist, Dr. Erskine. He told Steve that the super soldier serum, combined with the Vita rays, would transform him from frail and sickly into America's first Avenger. The experiment was a success. But before Steve, General Phillips, or anyone else in the lab could notice, an enemy spy who had been working in the lab attacked. He did not want the Americans to have such power. The doctor was hurt and unable to duplicate the serum. But Steve in his new super soldier body was safe, and he was angry. The army put Steve through a very special training camp to teach him how to use his new body. The general presented Steve with a super shield made of the strongest metal known. and a unique costume to help Steve mask his identity. With the costume and shield, Steve would now be known as America's most powerful soldier, Captain America. Captain America's missions were often dangerous. In order to keep his secret safe, the general asked Steve to pretend to be a clumsy army private. But when no one was looking, Steve donned his costume and fought for justice. Steve's reputation as a klutz meant he was transferred often, but Steve's moving around allowed Captain America to fight on many different fronts of the worldwide war. No one ever suspected that the worst private in the US Army was also the best soldier that the Army had. Captain America kept on fighting for liberty until finally the war had been won. Though the country might not always live up to its promises, as long as Steve was able, he vowed to protect it and its ideals: justice, equality, freedom, and the dream of what the nation he loved could accomplish. The end.